Explain Palestine in 30 seconds. That's absolutely impossible. Couldn't do it in 30 hours. Here's the chain of events. Mahmoud Abbas, as the president of the Palestinian Authority, will ask the UN Secretary General to take Palestine's bid for statehood to the UN Security Council. What is for sure, if that happens? The United States, possibly other countries, but certainly the United States, will veto that. The Palestinians then have the option, if they wish to, of taking a resolution to the UN General Assembly, where they will need 2/3 majority in support of the declaration of a Palestinian state. So at that point, they would not be full members of the United Nations. That can only be done by the Security Council. But they would have observer status at the UN, which would be at least a moral victory. This conflict goes back, obviously, centuries, but the modern conflict dates back to about 1917 in the Balfour Declaration, which said that part of Palestine should become a Jewish state. After the Second World War, that pressure became even greater. There was an attempt by the United Nations to divide historic Palestine amongst the Jews and the Arabs. That fell to pieces. The Israelis declared independence. Then, of course, you had the '67 war that followed the 1948 war, and we have now a situation where the Palestinians refer back to 1948 as the Nakba, the catastrophe. And ever since then, they've been looking for a right of return for those refugees who were expelled from what is now Israel, and for more land, or a restoration of the land that they occupied in 1948 and even before the 1967 war. The US position is that any solution in this region must be agreed by the parties. President Obama, in his landmark speech back in May, said that the basis for any settlement should be the pre-1967 war borders, plus any agreed land swaps.
With mutually agreed swaps.
And that is the most important part of that formula, because agreeing those land swaps is so difficult when, for the last 20 to 30 years, Israel has been building settlements, some of them the size of small cities in the West Bank. Now, the Palestinians have said negotiations are going nowhere, and therefore we are taking this alternative course because we're not going to be refugees discriminated against in some sort of apartheid system for any longer. If you go back to 1973, for example, the Israelis won the '73 war. The Saudis responded, and other Arab members responded with the oil embargo, which drove the United States into recession. This is still an area which sits on a lot of the world's oil. It matters to the US what happens in this area, economically, but also politically, because a radicalized Islam based on perhaps another intifada of the Palestinian territories does not play into the hands of the United States, not least when it's trying to mobilize what's happened in the Arab Spring to create an Arab world that is more democratic, more transparent, more open, and less hostile to the West.